Please welcome Meghan Lockhart.
Hi, everyone. I'll have to connect with my Zillow and Expedia family after this. Happy to see you guys. Okay, so we're going to dive into attribution. As Steve mentioned, I know this is a hot topic, a challenge and opportunity for all of us. So we have some things we're going to talk about. These guys have some great stories and examples to share, but definitely be thinking about your questions. We're hoping for a rich Q&A and to get involved later on. So I'll kick it off to Philip.
Cool, thank you. So my name is Philip Bryant. I'm the manager of digital media operations at ASICS Digital. And ASICS Digital is a small subsidiary of ASICS worldwide, and we seek to standardize best practices, media buying, consistency, transparency across all of our regions. So ASICS operates in, I think, 85 countries. Don't quote me, but about 85 countries. And with that, there's many different nuances and very different environments throughout all of our regions. So we're trying to get one center of excellence where we have an in-house team that can start connecting a lot of the dots and start putting things together, such as attribution.
Hey guys, so I'm not Joe Glasser with Warner Brothers. I'm the last minute change. My name's Antony McGregor. I'm the
We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
It's actually going to be a little bit more interesting because we've got a big brand and a small brand on the stage, and how do we focus on attribution? So I'm the head of marketing for a brand called the Vixen. We're an e-commerce brand, pretty much 100% online. We focus on women's alternative fashion, steampunk, goth, very niche brand, but we're growing extremely fast. We focus mainly in the US. We do have sales internationally, but we don't seek those sales out. We're very scrappy, very small, very little budget. So I think it'll be interesting to have the dichotomy here of small and scrappy versus, I guess, established and growing. Yep.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we have a couple questions, but I'd love to just hear a little bit about attribution in general, where you guys are at. I know for you, Antony, you're actually doing a lot of interesting things with digital and social.
Yeah, so as I said, we're really small and scrappy. 100% of our sales are online. So we do have the benefit of being able to track nearly everything when possible. Certainly, attribution is still not easy. The data can say a customer bought for this reason, but that's actually not the reason why they bought. But you can certainly see what's at least driving some revenue. We use a lot of the free tools that are out there, Google Analytics, Google Data Studio. There's a new one, Google Attribution, that we're just starting to play with. The good news is, even though attribution might not line up across these different platforms, you can see the trends. And so, even now, you'll say, oh, Google Analytics is not reporting the same amount of clicks as Facebook. Well, is it consistent, though? Is there a consistent difference between the two? Because you're not always going to have the exact right data. Cookies get dropped. People clear their browsers. People come in from one device to another. But we do a lot of attribution from tracking the clicks. I mean, we use a CRM on e-commerce called Klaviyo. And we're tracking every time somebody clicks, we're adding that click to the CRM if we're using UTM tags to track the click. That alone is enough for us to start to know what platform the customer is coming in from, what they're responding to. Another thing we do is we actually do sometimes just ask the customer. I have a good story I told earlier. We do a lot of Facebook Messenger marketing already. We have about 40,000 people subscribed to our bot. And we do really, really simple things. Our audience is extremely passionate, right? They're all hyper-focused and very much like emboldened by our brand. We're a very first-person brand, so all the pronouns are I, me, my in all our marketing. Violet is the brand, and so when they're communicating with the bot, we like them to feel like they're communicating with Violet. So we do stuff like asking them questions through Facebook Messenger, such as, oh, do you watch The Bachelor? Yes. If they say yes, then we actually segment them by the fact they watch The Bachelor. And then when something interesting is happening on The Bachelor, we'll literally send a message going, oh my God, did you see what Ari did to Becca on Monday night? What a bastard, right? But then we're tracking the links from Messenger back to the site as well, because we might say, hey, if Ari does this, we'll give you 20% off because, who wants to cry about it? And we're tracking all those links as well. So for us, the UTM tag is a critical tool in all of our attribution. Just knowing that we did this, we tracked that, and they did something on our site. One other analogy I'll give very quickly, when I first joined the Vixen, I was looking at where all our traffic was coming from, and we were tagging our social paid ads and our social, what we call original posts, which are just the standard newsfeed posts. But I was still seeing a lot of referral traffic coming from Facebook that wasn't attributed to tag traffic, and I couldn't work it out. And I started to look at the behavior of our social team, and they were commenting a lot with links to our site in the comment threads. And so I got them to start tagging those comments as well. So instead of just linking to a product, they would create a bit.ly link with a tracking URL in it just because it didn't look so ugly. And I saw 40% of our Facebook referral traffic was coming from our community moderators linking in the comments back to the site. And so that's become a core strategy for us now as well. We have somebody whose entire job is just be in the comments, responding to people and linking them back to the site. So there's a couple little stories there that we're using for attribution when we're not using something like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Adobe Marketing Cloud because we can't afford them. We can still create some multi-channel tracking down to an individual.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess my experience with attribution is a little bit different. So I came from the agency side previously, and we really, 2 or 3 years ago, really caught the wave of the multi-touch attribution platform, right? And this was something that everyone was hyping about, and everything was saying this is going to be, the end-all, be-all to all your digital marketing issues. As most of you guys realize, it's not, right? And actually, can you show of hands if you're using multi-touch attribution, or you have, or thinking about it? And then if you can raise your hand if you actually like the results you're seeing. Oh, nice, okay. Vendor side, all right. Your attribution model works. Everyone else is.
We didn't tee that up, that's real.
Yeah. So I think what we noticed is it was, from what my experience is, really it was oversold as a silver bullet. It was oversold as this algorithm, it's the secret sauce from these really expensive platforms that will really kind of cure all your diseases. But really what we saw is it just creates more complexity. So it really came down to the data sources that you were able to input, and that also opened up a bigger can of worms, right? So, it is, if you are an e-com, I think it's much more simple to track where you're coming from. If you're like ASICS, we sell across the world, we sell across retailers, wholesalers, many different channels, and that creates such a complexity within the attribution space that while attribution and multi-touch attribution is a benefit, it's not an end-all be-all. So I think we have to look at it really as just one tool in your toolbox, but like the people from Zillow and Overstock said, it's really art and science. It's kind of crazy that you can't just say, how much did I spend on this consumer? There's just way too many factors that we can actually handle with these technologies today. Yeah.
So what would you say, in cutting through the clutter and knowing that you do have so many different touch points, how do you approach that with other members of your organization if you're selling something internally? What is ASIC? Yeah, what do you do? What do you both do?
So, and to preface, we haven't onboarded one of the big multi-touch attribution platforms yet. Really, I think what we're looking for is what can we do with the tools we have nowadays? And some of them are paid, like a Google Analytics Premium, which offers a data-driven attribution. But there's other things that we can do to start measuring the effectiveness of media. So multi-touch attribution is one thing. It helps us kind of understand the flow. It understands the pathing between touch points, especially if it's a clean environment, let's say all Google or all display. That works really well. And we can use that as an optimization metric to understand what to do more of and what to do less of. But like you said, you throw in custom audiences in Facebook, or you throw in an in-app mobile environment where you can't track that via cookies. That's where it gets really complicated. And that's where you kind of have to go more to the art side and also use your other tools in your inbox. So things like incrementality testing. That's a good way that you can measure the effectiveness of your media regardless of the attribution funnel, regardless of who else is playing. Test each channel within itself against a controlled audience, a randomized control audience, and then you at least know what those channels are doing in terms of true effectiveness, or at least lift.
So you asked, how do we work with the rest of the team to drive attribution? We have a pretty simple model. We're definitely, I've educated the entire team, and we're small, there's less than 10 of us, but I've educated the entire team how important it is to track every click. So I have a Google Sheet that I use, very simple, and it's just where the team goes when they want to share a URL anywhere. They have to generate it through the sheet first, and it just spits out a tracking link for them, UTM source campaign. It's all structured for them, so they can't really kind of break it. They have to choose from drop-downs. But the team just goes in there, they put in their name, they put in the variables, what's the campaign name, and so on, and that's the link they share. So because we are online and we're sharing a lot of links all over the place, the team always is always in that spreadsheet, but where we have a unique link for our Facebook profile. We have a unique link for our Twitter profile. So we can see, are people coming from the Facebook page directly, or are they coming from the comments? Also, the community team, they all have their own unique discount code that they can offer anytime they want. And we're attributing just on their work there as well. If this discount code's used, it came from this individual, whether it's someone within the community or one of our paid moderators. It's very much attributed that way. So for us, how do I work with the team? There's incentives there. The moderators that share the most and get the most sales attributed to them, they're going to get some sort of bonus. But it's also just making it understand for everybody, guys, you know, we live and die by tracking, so make sure you use this spreadsheet just to generate URLs. It's a very simple solution, but I mean, it works for us.
To jump on that, we try to do that as well. You know, we try to have one nice Excel, and unfortunately, it gets out of hand. So it's cool to see that you guys actually implement that process. To actually, everyone has to go through it. No one's kind of going off, you know, random social community managers doing their own thing. So I think that's one of the challenges in working with a team, and I think that's really important to educate them on truly what is the value. You know, why are agencies, third-party agencies, internal teams across the globe, why should they go through this one kind of UTM tracking sheet, and hopefully, you know, you empower them and you educate them to show what the benefits are, and then hopefully you get more leeway within the org and more flexibility and better help.
I just remembered the one killer app we just introduced for it as well. We now have a single dashboard that the whole team can see. We implemented it through Google Data Studio, actually, and it literally has a leaderboard that shows how many sales the individual moderators or members on the team are driving, and if they're not using tracking attribution, their numbers aren't appearing on the board. It's actually changed the dynamics even more. So there's a competitive nature internally as well to get people to attribute, you know, traffic that they're driving to the site to themselves.
So it sounds like, you know, obviously you guys have very different sized organizations, but it sounds like for you guys, there's a lot of content that these salespeople are then using to inspire their own. And you're working with a lot of different agency partners, obviously a lot of different members. How do you guys align what everyone's up to? I mean, you mentioned these, you know, the Google Docs or whatever, these Excel sheets that you're using, but how do you align the strategy behind it and make sure that someone's promotion with The Bachelor is not conflicting with someone's different promotion and the consumer's getting confused? How do you guys align those things?
We certainly, you know, obviously have regular meetings on what are we promoting now. And we tend to make sure that everybody knows for this campaign, this is the campaign name you have to use. And sometimes I'm playing around with the Google Sheet because it is getting a little big now, actually. So I'm starting to do, you know, goal-specific tabs down the bottom. So if it's a sales campaign versus an awareness campaign, they're generating the tracking URL within that specific tab. So again, I think for us, aligning is more just you're doing your job. If you're going to share a link, go here and share it. And then it's up to me to kind of decide to see when it's starting to break down. How do I adjust it slightly, but still not interrupt people's work? And that's a hard part as well, because as we all know, once somebody's kind of in a rhythm and they're doing things, getting them to change again is very difficult. So if I'm making a change, it's kind of incremental with the team. It's like, oh, I've added tabs down the bottom now, so make sure you're using those rather than the single sheet we were using previously. But again, we're a small team, so it's kind of easy for us, right? I mean, if you're not doing what you're told, then you know everyone kind of knows pretty quickly that you're the one that's dragging everyone else down. So I think it's a little easier for us.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a challenge. Just the sheer volume, the number of languages we operate in, and you know, just the different agencies and all the different people involved. Less on the attribution side. One of the things we've done is more from our data side. So I know there's some good discussions around kind of big data, consumer data. We've centralized our DMP into one kind of consistent DMP that can be used across the board. So that ties into all 4 of our brands, not just the running shoes, but we have lifestyle, we have outdoor apparel. So we've tied that across all of ours, and then all CRM data kind of gets pumped into this singular DMP. Yeah. One of the issues, though, is kind of overlapping usage. So that's the thing, right? We don't want to be going after, you know, 3 different teams going after the same consumers. So we do have very strict kind of procedures and processes to make sure that, you know, when someone is kind of reaching into the first-party data pool to say, hey, whether it's research or actual targeting, everyone else knows about that, and make sure that there's no overlap or duplication. We don't want to be hitting the same person over in the head, you know, with 30 different ads from 20 different campaigns. So that's one area I think we need to mirror that on the attribution side, but we need to follow those processes from the data side.
Yeah. So there's been some discussion about walled gardens. I know we talked about that the other day. How do you guys track what people are doing when they enter into a space that you might have sent them to through an ad, or how do you guys work with that? I know you guys have had some challenges with that.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard some great ideas yesterday, so I want to think about it. But I think that's where we go back into, from my experience, and please, and if anybody has the solution between Facebook and Google, let me know. But in my experience, there's a certain amount of data that they just will not share, right? So like custom audiences, impression data, they just will not share that to Google and vice versa. So from there, that's where unfortunately we have to break the mold of getting all of our data in one place. While we can see all the data in one place through a business intelligence dashboard, it's really hard to optimize across both of them where they work together. So that's where we look at incrementality testing, and that's kind of a big piece, that we have to measure Facebook's media against Facebook itself and make sure that against the control audience, is it actually working? Vice versa, we look over at Google and say, all right, within this environment, another walled garden, a little bit more open, but is the media actually driving incremental returns, incremental sales, incremental visits, and use that as kind of the channel-specific measurement?
Yeah.
For us, it's, again, a little different. I do tend to trust, for us, because we do spend so much money on Facebook, and I've tested it again and again, I actually do trust Facebook's data internally a lot. I mean, we are sending purchase conversion data to Facebook so we can see the actual return on ad spend to the dollar amount, because every time a purchase happens, we're sending that actual dollar figure back to Facebook, and it's tracking it. Obviously, Facebook's conversion windows, and if everybody is using Facebook ads, don't fall for their conversion windows. Make sure you're checking it. The default is a 28-day click conversion window and a 1-day view conversion window. I find 28-day click is probably a little too broad. I've brought it down to 14. What that means, though, is if somebody clicked on your ad and then purchased 28 days later from something else, Facebook is still going to take credit for that sale as a last click attribution, even though they might have clicked through on Google for a retargeting ad you're doing for Google Display Network. And I noticed that early on. But still, at the end of the day, if Facebook says somebody clicked on an ad and they made a purchase and here's the amount, I'm going to feel like that was a good return on ad spend. One thought that just came to me actually, and something we've started implementing recently, it's extracting data from Facebook. I'm now my UTM tags that I'm using in Facebook ads are starting to become quite long because I'm actually segmenting my audiences to very, very narrow audiences based on interest, and I'm actually putting that data in the UTM tag. So let's say I'm targeting soccer mums who are into Ford F-150 trucks, which is actually a core part of our audience, who also happen to be hairdressers, and they're 22. My UTM tag will, in the term I use, because it's Facebook, so it's UTM term, it'll be 22 S mum truck hairdresser. That data is actually, when they click on it, it's appearing in Google Analytics and in our CRM. So the benefit I have is as somebody creates an account, say in Klaviyo, they fill in an email address for the first time. Klaviyo is taking that original URL and adding it to the database. I know from the second they put in their email address that this person is a 22-year-old soccer mom who's interested in trucks and is a hairdresser, because it just came from the UTM tag against the audience that I was buying in Facebook. And that helps me hyper-segment our audiences from the minute they enter the database. And that's become a pretty effective tool for us for communicating, because, again, Violet is our brand, is supposed to know everything about your interests, right? And so then we send hairdresser-specific messaging to the hairdressers, and we never actually asked them that data. We just got it from the ad they clicked on, because only 22-year-old hairdressers who are interested in trucks, who are soccer mums, will have seen that ad and clicked on it. So that's helping as well for extracting data from Facebook. That's cool.
So the last question, and then we'll open it up. I just would love to hear from you guys. Both of you have strong community and brand. That's a huge part of both of your worlds. How do you measure the time that you're spending nurturing that community, connecting, engaging? Why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, so most people, ASICS is a pretty old brand, right? We're about 75 years old. We are a heritage Japanese brand, started just post-World War II. And I think most people know them as just a very high-quality running shoe, right? I think that's the vast majority. And over the years, I think their dedication to just excellence, performance, research, and development has really kind of grown that brand organically. There wasn't much marketing in the past, especially over the years. We really haven't invested too much. So that's really an organic growth just from the users who use our shoes. So You know, that ties into one of the ROI issues, or one of the questions earlier this morning is, you know, we will pay a lot more to get someone into our pair of shoes for the first time. We know once they're an ASICS consumer, if you're a runner and you run, and you know, maybe a couple exceptions, but most people are very brand loyal once they find a running shoe for them. And so we have people that have owned the past 20 iterations of the same shoe. We'll have people that buy 10 of the same shoe if they really love that brand or that model specifically, and say, I have 10 of the exact same shoe because I know over the years it's going to fit my foot, it feels good, it's done. So that's really what we want to kind of enable and support, and then start to grow our additional product awareness for our other lifestyle brands or other things. So we really want to nurture that core runner, which is kind of our bread and butter, and then show them the complementary assets as well.
For us, measuring the, I guess, the return on the time and investment, it just, you do see a pop in sales. We can't compete on price, right? Amazon is going to eat our lunch every day, so we have to compete on experience. And so we have a core message against all the teams: surprise and delight the customer at every turn. And so, you know, we use pop-ups on the site now, but the pop-ups aren't these boring pop-ups like, how can I help you? It's like, oh, you've come here 6 times in the past month, darling. Like, you know, maybe you want to buy me dinner first. It's these kind of little things that when the customer hits the site, we're making them smile, and not necessarily just selling to them. And it pays out in the end, because we see customers buying more and more as we're doing more and more of these activities. And you know, that's the problem with attribution, as Philip said. It's not a silver bullet. It's kind of just a guideline for you to say, okay, I think this is working. These numbers kind of show me it's working, so I'm going to keep doing it. And if your sales are increasing or your core goal is happening, then you know it must be working. So for us, it's how often are people buying again? What's their time to purchase? You know, and actually I'm trying to build a new metric, but I don't quite know how to model it. It's kind of just like a happiness metric. You know, how many people are visiting the site? Are they commenting on our comments? Because we use this is a really cool tool I found recently called Reamaze, which we've moved our entire customer support over to. But it actually pulls in against an email address Facebook comments on the actual wall itself. So it's not just private messaging or emails. I can see within a single dashboard, this customer, you know, Becca, she's commented on our wall 4 times, she's messaged us twice privately on Facebook, she's sent us 3 emails, and she's responded to 6 chats. So I can see she's a highly engaged customer, and I'm trying to work out how can I measure her sentiment towards us as well, and that's going to be kind of another goal for us in the future. You know, how happy are we making our customers? How much are we surprising them at every turn? Because again, we can't compete on price at all. So we have to be that brand that's $20 more expensive, but you know what? We're fun to buy from. So you know, I'm going to spend that money with Violet Vixen directly rather than going to, say, a competitor on Amazon.
Love it. All right, well, we'll open it up. Any questions, or anyone that wants to share their experience?
Looking at, for ASICS and kind of the online presence, the direct-to-consumer, how do you marry that with kind of the fact that you're in all of the sporting good retailers, and somebody may see an ad but then walk into a Dick's Sporting Goods and buy your shoes there? Yeah,
so that's definitely one of the challenges of talking about. You know, you get a fancy multi-touch attribution model and you're only measuring 10% of your sales that happen D2C, right? So twofold, I think the footwear industry and pretty much most retail industries are kind of pushing that way to do more D2C, so that you get the data, you know, better margins, all that. But when it actually comes down to it, I think that's really where we need to better our relationships with our retailers and try to get more data from them, right? And then set up specific tests. So, you know, we could do partnerships with specific retailers, again, do kind of control and lift tests to see, you know, if we are pushing people to a Foot Locker, what does that look like in turn? That's data that we can then go to our retail partners and say, listen, Foot Locker, like our advertising, while it may be just a, you know, branded ASICS ad, is actually driving X% to your stores. So I think there's a couple different ways, but it requires a lot of communication. It requires a lot of trust with our retailers. And then it, you know, it has to go both ways, right? We can't just expect our retail partners to give us their data. You know, we get sell-through data, but you can't tie the dots completely. So a lot of communication, kind of painful. I don't think there's a perfect...
There's a question I've always wondered in the retail space, and maybe you know. Is there a focus for you guys to get people who've bought the physical product to kind of register it with you, or somehow signal to you directly, hey, I bought a physical product, and then find out how they bought it and kind of work backwards from there?
Yeah, and I have some experience again with other clients in the past. I think that is one good way to do it, right? I mean, I think that's a great way, but I think there needs to be a value exchange, right? So I think it's a little tacky just to say register your shoes. What are you going to get if you register your shoes, right? Like that's purely just I'm giving you my data. So I think we got to look for creative ways to make it, again, a two-way communication and say, we do have a membership program. We are starting to build it out. There's a couple pilots, and what is that value exchange? So is it free returns even after you've run in them for a month or two? What is that back and forth for people to understand that, hey, I'm giving this data, and again, I'm closing the loop right there, right? If you register after buying from Foot Locker, what am I getting in return? And I think consumers are all pretty selfish in that way. They don't want to give out their data completely to a company, but if there is a value exchange, then I think a lot of people are used to that and pretty open to it. So it's definitely areas we're exploring to kind of close the gap.
Well, I think did we have another question? Yep.
Antony, tell me about your chatbot program and how you got it started. Like, what questions have you found to be particularly successful?
We kind of have a secret weapon that's worked really well for us. So we use ManyChat is the tool I use. It's a really great tool. It's got a lot of functionality, and the founder has kind of become a friend of mine, so he's always asking me stuff. We do a free corset consultation because we sell corsets, right? And they're very difficult to size. Bigger breasts mean you need a different size, waist, and so on. So we offer this free corset consultation, which is driven by the chatbot. And it's just, and there's another one I'll mention in a sec as well. But it's super powerful because we've just built out the questions that we ask in the corset as multiple choice options in the chatbot. So we'll run an ad, which is get a free corset consultation. They click the ad. The messenger starts, and the first question is, hey, I'm here to give you a free corset consultation. My name's Violet. And then we have a little bit of fun messaging there, and then we just start asking the questions. The benefit is, before they've even bought something from us, we know what their favorite color is, we know if they prefer lace over leather, we know what their cup size is, what their waist size is, what their hip size is. So if we get something in the clearance section, which for us is just money sitting around because people are made to order a corset, and then they decide they don't want it, it has to go to clearance. Now if we have someone who matches those same sizes, we can just send them a private message saying, hey, there's a discounted one sitting in clearance. So that really works quite well. For us, is just an initial first touch onboarding. We have a lot of fun with the customer in that level, and I'm still evolving that bot a lot. We're finding out what sort of music they like. Are you more punk rock? Are you going to be wearing the clothes to work? Are you going to be wearing them to concerts, right? So we get all this data from them before they've ever bought from us, and all that goes into my segmenting tool. The other one we're using with the chatbot, which this one is just an amazing feature, we're doing giveaway contests now where it's comment to give away, which Facebook doesn't like organically, but if you pay to do it, Facebook doesn't care. And so we're literally...
The Russians discovered that as well.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the contest model is very simple. I'm giving away a free corset. I'm giving away a free pair of shoes. You get to choose what you want. Go to my website, find the item you like, and then leave it as a comment on this thread. The ManyChat has a function where when they comment, it's comment to messengers. So the minute they comment, it kicks back a message to them. But already, they've clicked on my ad to see the rest of the thread. So I'm getting an engagement metric there from Facebook. They're going to my site and looking around at stuff they like. I'm cookieing and pixeling everything they're looking at. They now get those added as a dynamic display ad back to them. So everything they saw on the site, they were thinking about what I want. 2 or 3 days later, they're getting back with a coupon with $10 off everything they saw. They comment. The comment bot kicks back and says, hey, just before I can let you know if you've won, I'll need your email address. Don't worry, I'll look after it. They put in their email address. Now I've got their email address as well. I'm paying about 5 cents an email address at the moment through these comment contests. And then when they don't win, because we choose a winner and everyone else doesn't win, I send a follow-up message saying, sorry you didn't win, but here's 10% off on my site, right? And so it's a really cool way of kind of building out this end-to-end flow. And again, that's working for existing customers as well as new customers, because everyone kind of wants to win. And for them to do it, it's a few extra steps, but it's, again, fun, right? They go into the site, they're looking at what do I want to win, right? And so, yeah, ManyChat's an awesome tool. I really like
How
it.
much effort and how many people does it take to do that, what you just described?
That's just me, 100%.
That's just you. That's a morning? What is that?
Yeah, because once you do it once, you've just got a template, so you can copy it into the next contest and run it that way. Yeah. So ManyChat's quite an easy tool to use. I actually, I knew I was going to be speaking, so I actually, if you guys go to bit.ly/brand summit ATX, I think with a capital B, if you put your email address there, I'll just send you guys an email with everything that I'm using right now for all these kind of little scrappy things that I'm doing, because I don't have time to write a blog, frankly. But
Because you're doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That Meghan panel, thank you very much. We're going to